Welcome to The Art of Success, a podcast that explores the deeper dimensions of achievement. I'm your host, Daria, an ambitious yet soul-centered entrepreneur, coach, artist, a loving mom and wife, and in this space we'll dive deep into what it truly means to succeed. Thank you for being here. Your presence makes this journey even more meaningful. Welcome to the very first episode of this podcast. And where do I even begin? With my open heart, I want to share with you my excitement, how thrilled I am, how much looking forward I am to this journey, and how honored I am that you are on the other side, listening or watching it from, or both, from God knows where from in the world. And it's just, I believe these moments are just so magical of connecting. If you're new to this space, if you're new to me and to my world, then welcome. I'm just so glad that's from somewhere you're tuning in to this podcast. And I wholeheartedly wish for it to obviously to expand some things new, so to inspire or empower or just evoke something in you. And I'm so happy and honored and grateful that you're here on the other side. And I treasure and value your time so much, because I believe really the time that we have is like the most precious thing that we have and that we can give. And this is why I really appreciate that you're tuning in, that you're or watching it, or both, in whichever platform that you found your way to this podcast with. In today's episode, I want to cover two kind of sections, let's say, two parts, two thoughts I want to have a look at with you. And as it's the beginning episode, I believe whenever we're starting something new, it's important for us to have some vision behind it. And truth to be told, I wasn't always like that, okay? So it took me years of learning and evolution and growing and going through let's say really challenging situations that I learned okay, I want to be more intentional about how I create my life, how I feel in my life, what's basically happening. So I can be free-flowing, and believe me, I'm a free-flowing in its nature being. I would just wing it all, as my husband would say, you're just winging it. But I'm not really just winging it. That's maybe for another episode that we could talk about this, we could address this. But I believe that it's just really important to have those visions behind us when we're starting something, because those visions are those precious energies that you can always tap into even when things get more challenging. But I'm definitely sure vision we will cover in one of the following episodes. Okay, so let's just dive into my vision for the podcast. My vision for this podcast is huge, really is huge, and it really starts and ends with you being part of it. This is what I want to emphasize, that for me, going ahead with this, and it took me years, working through some layers of fears of being seen and being heard and etc. It took some time for me to really get ready and get in front of this microphone and this camera, and to really be connecting with you and connect and show and invite you to my world. My vision for this is not to be a one-man show or one-woman show, but I want this podcast to be an entity of its own. I want you to be co-creating this with me, and you actually are co-creating just by the simple act of tuning in and listening or watching. You're here in that moment. You basically meet me in this time and space, and it doesn't matter if it's gonna be months or even years after I recorded this one. It's like a time capsule that you can always jump back into and enjoy it. And I wanna apologize up front that if I sometimes hit the mic or hit my pop filter or just do something funny like this, yeah, it comes with me. So if it's not a one-man show, then what it is, or one-woman show? Really, for me, this podcast, the Art of Success podcast, is a movement. It's something that has so much power and energy, and it's something that I want to be able to move mountains, because I believe these things that this vision grows on for me is not just about me, and it's for you as well as you're tuning in, and it's for everybody really who's ever wondered what are the other layers to success, and how could success look like in a different ways, or not even in different ways, even maybe in the same format that you're used to, but still like having a different glance at those things and different perspectives. And I believe this is the treasure of basically getting into this topic. And first of all, while I'm encouraging you to come to this podcast always with your heart open and your mind open, with that mind of a student, that you might never know what you're going to find out, and maybe it's going to be something revolutionary, maybe it's not going to be, but if you come with a heart and mind open, you're increasing your chances of actually learning something that could be really, really useful for you. That's all I want to ask for. So please, send that intention to yourself out there, to really be opening yourself to whatever that you can learn. Unexpected miracles, perhaps. The vision for me of this podcast is kind of 3 layers. The first layer really is that energy of a movement, of a community-driven space, of people who share, who co-create these episodes, who invite amazing topics. By the way, I'm always open to hear from interesting guests, which will be also part of the podcast, and you showing up on this podcast as well. If it will feel interesting to you, please always reach out to me. The address for this, the best way to reach me, is podcast@dariamolnar.com, where you can share these. This is the vision for me of the movement that inspires, that empowers, that activates even. And I want to stop here. So what do I mean by activating? I mean this directly linked with triggers. So I just want to put it out here in the first episode that I can't guarantee that you won't get triggered at some point. You are likely to get triggered sometimes. I know it, that like people who listen to what I have to say, what's on my heart and what's on my mind, some of them like really get triggered quite a bit, and this is totally perfect. I love it. I actually love it, because triggers, I don't really even use this word. I prefer the word activation, because what I believe triggers truly are is activations for us, are like personal butt kickers in a sense, that show us like, okay, like something's happening, some fire, I can feel some fire in me. Cool, let's use this fire, it's energy. This can be transmuted into something super useful for us and our journeys and our businesses. But triggers are good, it's activations. The second level or second layer of the vision for me is really as well for my self-realization, because I believe that I have been given this beautiful gift of having my voice, and sharing it with you for me is utilizing my gift. So as I'm always trying to be, okay, not always this in the same way, it's like sometimes more, sometimes less, but there's always this vision that I have a voice to share. And this is why I feel it's kind of my duty to be creating those pathways, those channels through which I can be sharing that gift with you. And this podcast is now one of these, to be using this precious gift that I've been given. It's also kind of empowering me to step up to my bravery, because it's not an accident that I've been, spending this much time to be able to even record the first episode. But why did it take so much time? Because I needed to alchemize certain things, and I also needed to collect the courage. So just a maybe reminder for you, like whenever you see people, and if you're not in that position yet to be, really seen and sharing your truth with the world, then please know when you're looking at those people who are sharing it, they also have these, and they in different levels, they had to overcome this and find bravery within them that would help them and facilitate them to be really showing up to their audiences. So it's magic. It's like magical alchemy. But I always find it's really useful to be finding respect and inspiration in those people who actually, even if you don't agree with what they're sharing, just finding that simple admiration, like, oh, but they're actually out there, like they're sharing it. And this is, again, the topic of triggers versus like activations, or it's not versus, but for me it's the same thing. But activation is I feel much more potent and useful way to look at these. But like if somebody's triggering you by launching their podcast or by doing this or launching this, well, have a look at like, okay, why is it actually triggering you? Is it because you're actually secretly jealous of them or like envious of that they're actually going for it? And I'm not saying that you are, but this is the power and the beauty of these activations. So always, 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 go back to yourself, and you will be receiving these invites from me throughout the podcast all of the time. Like, what do these mean to you? My invitation. Explore this in your own reality. What, how do you see yourself? Blah, 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 blah. So you're going to get used to it. This is just how I roll. And the third kind of level to this vision for this podcast for me is actually the host. I mean, the guests that are going to be. This one is such a hard one for me, by the way. I'm just like moving a bit from the topic. Host versus guest, because Czech, from the Czech language, which is one of my native languages, is English is not, by the way, so pardon my mistakes. If you're native, I really appreciate that you're giving me this space and understanding and being okay with my imperfectly perfect English. But back to the Czech. So this one is always for me, I don't know, a point where I'm often like, okay, mixing these words up a bit, because in Czech actually host is the guest, so it's like, oh, okay, this one can be a little bit confusing, but I know that at some point I will finally, maybe if I will put enough priority to this, I will stop confusing these. Maybe even through this podcast I will actually finally master it. Anyway, the third layer of my vision for the Art of Success podcast is to be able to invite remarkable guests and have them here sharing their voices, sharing their space and their important messages. And I cannot wait to have these conversations that I believe, as I'm planning or I'm intending for them to be equally inspiring, equally empowering, equally, just even activating. And just interesting and like mind-blowing even, some could be. I believe it will be like that as well. To come to this podcast and really to be here with us. I will be often saying us, we, in plural. The reason for that is, as I said, I believe this podcast is a community, is a movement, and it's not a one-woman show. So for me, it's us behind this, and this is why I'm always so open for you to share like how these things landed with you and what you found out, and reshare. And that's another thing that I will always really be grateful for, if you will be sharing this, resharing this on social media or in person with other people, especially if those things will be interesting for you to realize or to learn or to hear about. Please spread it, because it works the best if we're sharing what we find like, oh, this is really cool, because this is just how all of this beautiful energy like amplifies, and you never know where it's gonna be taking you to next if you actually share the goodness. So if you share the goodness, you just multiply the goodness. So this is my vision. I feel like it's giving me goosebumps always when I really tap into it, and I believe this is how a vision should feel to all of us. So maybe my invitation, this is not the topic of this podcast today, but still to feel into, okay, where is your vision that is so strong to you, so powerful, so potent, that is giving you goosebumps when you talk about it? You know what I mean? So you have this full body answer to this, like, yes, this is exactly it. I'm in the right time and space, and this is exactly where I should be. And I believe the body is always reacting to this like immediately. Okay, so that was the first part. We've covered that. Yay, well done us. And the second part that I wanted to dive in with you today is the definitions, because I feel like this is doing the groundwork to like setting up, so what are we building from here? So for me, this podcast episode, the first one, is really about building blocks, and then we're gonna be in the next episode and in the next months and hopefully years, let's see. I mean, yeah, I really wish for it to be a long-term project still, We're gonna be like building, adding more bricks, and basically organically seeing and like playing with it, and like widening perspectives and going deeper into certain topics. And it's just gonna be like this beautiful organic entity, really. Yeah, entity is the word that's coming up for me. So definitions, and why do I even want to like have a look at these definitions with you now? Like, why do I want to kind of bore you? I mean, I don't think it's gonna be boring for you, because I'm a master person in being bored immediately. Like my attention span, yeah, and I'm gonna be really honest with you as well on this podcast. It's like one of my plans to be really coming authentically to you, raw, and basically providing for you to enjoy like the spaces where people actually are brave enough to be authentic and to uncover their truths that maybe they don't share to like every single person they meet, but they are authentic and they share their truth. So what was I saying? Now there you go. I got so much in the flow that it's gonna come back. If it has to come back, it's gonna come back. So the definitions, I want to have a look at the more, let's say, general ones, like something that, let's say, most people would probably, you know, feel with or agree with, or that's how they would approach it. And then I want to share with you my definitions, and then I want to give you your own invitation to yourself. So that's going to be for you and about you. For this, I decided to use the support of the Oxford Dictionary, which is actually the widely accepted as the most complete record of the English language ever assembled. So for me, it's like, okay, that's okay, good enough authority. Let's go with this one. So let's have a look at success, because the podcast is called The Art of Success. Let me remind you. So success. In the Oxford Dictionary, it's being described as the fact that you have achieved something that you want and have been trying to do or get. Or, in another meaning, the fact of becoming rich and famous, or getting a high social position. Yeah. So maybe just an interesting little trivia, that the word success is coming from Latin, obviously, from the word successus, which actually like is from the mid-16th century. And the meaning of it, if I understood it right, is come close after. So basically when we have these, you know, like, for me, this like, where I know this from are these like, you know, royal families and like history, obviously. And like when we use the word like successor, it's the one who was following after, you know, after this king, the son followed after, so he was the successor. And it's really interesting how it changed very much the meaning of it and the perspective of success, because now it's really more into that one person achieving something based on this, you know, explanation of like, yes, the fact that you have achieved something that you want and have been trying to do or get. So you, a person, unless, you know, and something that you have done to get there where you got. But the successor, especially if it wasn't like the bloodline, this wasn't the case. So it's really interesting, I think. And you know, if you're into history, which I am not, frankly, again, I'm coming like honest to you, then you might as well use this opportunity to explore this even a little more. But that would be the success by like general understanding of it. Then the word failure could be interesting to mention as well. Failure is the lack of success in doing or achieving something. So practically would be the opposite basically of what success is. So like on the other side of success, there would be failure. Let's put it simple this way. And then art, which we are again using, the art of success. Art in the Oxford Dictionary is the use of the imagination to express ideas or feelings, particularly in painting, drawing, or sculpture. Okay, fair enough. And the art of, that would be an ability or a skill that you can develop with training and practice. Moving on to my definitions of these words that I just invited you to feel into, to explore. Actually, now I'm inviting you. Let's pause. You pause as well. Pause the podcast if it would feel right, and just ask yourself, okay, so Daria shared this now. How is this landing with me? What does this mean to me now, as where I am, where I'm standing? Yeah, just like use this opportunity to reflect. As for my definition, success unlike, you know, I think the general understanding it would be of really achieving certain something or like getting into certain something. For me, as I feel and understand success, success is rather a state, like a state of being, basically. So it's not like the final destination, but it's actually that everything which belongs to it. So like, you know, it's of course, you know, the mental state, the body state, the state and the success on the outcome or like on the external, so like what you get with this. But it's really, and now I'm even like going into unnecessarily like over explaining this, because really I think I just want to leave it as that it's a state of being for me, success. Yeah, full stop. And of course this is just like what we're talking about now, and we're gonna be going deeper into this as well in this podcast. Failure, as like, you know, general public sees it as the opposite of success. For me, it's not the opposite. Actually, let's stop here, yeah? So failure, even the word failure, if you would open a Daria Molnar dictionary and you would be looking for this word failure, you're most likely not to find it there, because I don't really have it in my dictionary. I work with this word in different ways. It's not like I would be putting my head in the sand that like, oh, it doesn't exist, it never happens, like things that would not be, you know, desirable, which is another point that I wanted to add to success, that it's not just a state of being. For me, it's as well a desirable state of being. Yeah, where we want to get. So there's definitely, we want it to happen. Of course we want this good feeling. We want it, it's desirable for us. That's like for sure, there's no question, for me at least. But yeah, the failure, it's not the opposite for me. What I love to do here is to use it, that we have the opportunity to see, okay, so there is something potentially on the, let's say, other side, which I really don't see. I feel like they're on the same side, success and failure, not like on the but failure, I think it's just such a great way to look at the contrast of it. So, you know, if you look at like yin and yang, black and white, I believe really is the same principle, this dual principle, which brings us to unity always, but it's important for the contrast of it. So for example, I don't think we can ever really understand where health is unless we ever experience sickness. I don't think we ever can really truly understand what being rich in, not just money wise, or like, you know, it can be in relationship wise, it can be in health wise, it can be in all kinds of ways. But it's never going to be, it needs this contrast of poverty as well on the other side, you know, in those things. For me, this is my perspective. And this is why I'm actually happy and grateful that this exists, and that we can have a look at that failure, which for me really is an unnecessary word in its sense. I prefer to call it really feedback, because it's always feedback, right? And this is why I say that success and failure for me are on the same boat. Like it's there together, and they're, you know, working towards, yeah, maybe they even want to go the same way, but they're just choosing different paths. Yeah. But this is why I feel like, yeah, it's both success, both failure are feedback to us for something. And it's up to us to do something about it. It's up to us to decide what it's going to mean for us and how we're going to use this feedback. Art, the word art, art is just, whenever I just like say art or like think of art, I feel like I immediately go into like uplifted mode, that like, oh my God, it's that like higher perspective thing, and it's something that is accessible, I believe to all of us. And I believe true art doesn't ever happen, and it's never created from mind, I believe. It's really us being, you know, able to be open enough for it to travel, to be channeled through us, so that we can share it with the world. But it's really in the higher like dimensions for me, always, art. And it's something that, you know, we like when you say, you know, when you ask an artist, like, if, you know, could you like stop painting, for example, and just like get a job, they could probably say, like, if they're really connected to the art space, they would say like, yeah, but I paint because I cannot not to. which is like, yes, this is exactly this. And I feel that this is why it's bigger than us. Yeah, I'm just gonna put it this way, that I don't believe the little, I don't want to say the little human, but I'm kind of saying, yeah, like the little human's mind, or the human's little mind, let's put it this way, would ever be creating these masterpieces, these amazing things that actually happen. And this is why I feel that the human is really the messenger, the traveler, the channeler of this energy. And it's something really high for me. While the art of, I feel that it's a beautiful connection between this space that I've just like explained, of this, really beautiful, potent, high in the energy and the vibe and the creation and all this dimension, and the space here on this earth in the matter, and we're living in a material world, and how amazing this can be. Really, it can be super amazing. So the art of, then, if it marries these two worlds, it is really, I believe, a skill. It is an ability that we can learn and we can master, and it's available for us. Like, it can be anything, like the art of sleeping, the art of exercising, the art of cooking, the art of I don't know, playing with your child, or like it can be like seriously like anything, because it's something that is available. And I do feel that, like, when we're practicing the art of something and becoming better and better and better at it, we're also nurturing that art bit with us. For me, maybe it's actually, if you would look at the two worlds, let's say like the materialistic and the more like really in the higher dimensions, let's say, it would be more connected with the artistry than maybe most people would think. And I told you I'm gonna be kicking this equipment frequently, so it's happening. But yeah, okay, so that would be kind of my views of it. And important to say that these are the views now, today. It's the 4th of October, I believe, 2023. And this is how I see it now. And I'm like happy and confident to stand behind this. Now, I don't know though, if it's gonna be the same thing, in a couple of weeks and months, because I as a person evolve, and also my perspectives evolve as I'm learning new things and I'm coming to new understandings. And this Sagittarius in me is like always hungry for more perspectives and expansion, and basically learning new things and learning them differently, and then like just benefiting from it even more. And this is why I kind of give myself that right to be able to revisit my opinions and my perspectives. And I give you, if you need this permission, you have the same right. So what I believe, by the way, is like, this could be another big topic, but what I believe is important, that we don't get stuck in that, like, we can never ever change our opinions. But at the same time, I don't think we should be like butterflies, just like flying from this to there, like that's not really right either, I think, because it can bring unnecessary confusion in ourselves. But what I feel is useful, and in my experience this is really useful, just like stepping into my values, and what do I value and how, like what are my values, and you will always find that integrity there. Yes, I believe that you will. Okay, so your dimensions, darling. So what are your definitions and your understanding of these keywords? Feel free to really ponder these, to make some time for yourself and space to like, okay, because this is something that I would want you to always pay attention to and spend energy with, to make sure that whatever you're learning, integrate it and make it yours. Don't just like take other people's words for yours. Like, just really ponder it, be feeling into it, be exploring it. How does it feel in your system? Even experiment like with trying it out. But really be brave to find your own definitions of success, failure, art of, because you have the right and the freedom to create your own definitions. So break those limitations of that you could not, because who says that you can't? I'm telling you that you can, but even that you can doubt. So feel free to be doubting like everything that people say, because I think there's really beauty in it. And I wouldn't be where I am now, and I find myself, yes, that I am successful. Somebody asked me the other day, Like, yeah, would you describe yourself as successful? Yes, I would. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. Just be bold enough, be brave enough to go against the grind, to basically find your own ways, your own vessels, because nothing really, like those innovations and those creative moments, they don't really happen from these like stagnant waters of us following what the other people are always doing. And, you know, traditions have its place, absolutely, yes. But if you're looking for that, you know, innovation and that novelty and that creativity and those ahas, well, then you're gonna have to enter those, you know, new, unknown, unexplored waters, darling. It's just how it's gonna be, and you're gonna freaking enjoy it if you decide to. Yeah, you can send your intention into, yes, I really want to enjoy this process, and you will if you set yourself up for it. Okay, so that will be it for today. My invitation to share this episode if you liked it, if you enjoyed listening to it, on your social media or in person. Share it to your friends, share it to people who might be loving this as well as much as we do. And I'm already referring us to as we, because I know it's gonna be a movement, I know it's gonna be a community, it already is. And reach out to me as well. I'm always keen to hear your feedback and basically your reactions and your thoughts on this and what it brought to you and your ahas and your realizations. I'm super open. So remember, podcast@dariamolnar.com, or find me at any social media that I'm present at. And if you will have interesting guests in mind that could be coming to this podcast and to be sharing their thoughts with us, please either send them to me or invite them. Or if you're that guest yourself, then please get in touch and let's talk if you would be a great fit for this as well. And let's really co-create this magic together. Let's co-create this space together. Let's have the time of our lives here. Yes, 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 yes. Because this is really, let's make it really worth it. So thank you so much for listening today. Thank you so much for watching today. And I am so excited to meet you at the next episode.